Constantinople, spring of 678. The night is dead calm. No wind. The sea flat as black glass. An Arab fleet sits at anchor just outside the city walls. 1,800 ships. The largest naval force ever assembled in the Mediterranean. They have been here for 5 years. Waiting. Starving out the last city standing between the Umayyad Caliphate and Europe. Then, from the darkness, Byzantine warships glide forward. Low. Fast. No sails, just oars cutting the water. At the prow of each ship is a massive bronze tube, like the head of a dragon, aimed straight ahead. The crews prime the pumps, and then they light the siphons. A stream of burning liquid sprays out, 30 feet, 40 feet, and slams into the Arab flagship. The wood ignites instantly. The sails catch. Sailors dive overboard. But the water does not save them. The fire floats. It spreads across the sea like burning oil, clinging to everything it touches. Ships, rigging, flesh. Men scream and burn in the water itself. In less than an hour, the Arab fleet breaks. Ships cut their anchors and run. Hundreds burn to the waterline. The rest scatter into the night, and they do not come back. This is Greek fire, a liquid flame that burned on water, could not be extinguished, and for 3 centuries made the Byzantine navy unstoppable. It was the most feared weapon in the medieval world. And then, one day, the people who made it forgot how. To understand what Greek fire saved, you need to understand what Constantinople was facing in the year 674. A century earlier, Byzantium had controlled the Mediterranean, North Africa, Egypt, Syria, Italy, the wealthiest empire on earth. Then the Arab conquests began. In 634, Muslim armies exploded out of Arabia. Within 40 years they had taken everything. Damascus fell in 634, Jerusalem in 638, Alexandria in 642. By 674, the Byzantine Empire had shrunk to Anatolia, Greece, and the capital itself. And now the Umayyad Caliphate wanted the last prize. Constantinople, the richest city in the Christian world, sitting at the hinge between Europe and Asia. If it fell, there was nothing between the Caliphate and the heart of Europe. The land walls were impenetrable, 12 meters high, triple-layered, studded with towers. Every army that had tried to break them had failed, so the Umayyads did not attack the walls. They attacked by sea. In 674, Caliph Muawiyah assembled the largest fleet the world had seen and blockaded the city. The plan was simple. Starve them. Wait. Take the city when it was too weak to resist. For 4 years it worked. Food ran low. The population began to starve. The emperor, Constantine IV, sent desperate embassies offering tribute, offering peace. The caliph refused. He wanted the city intact. He could wait. Then, sometime around 672, a refugee arrived at the palace. A Greek-speaking architect from Heliopolis in Syria, a city the Arabs had taken decades earlier. His name was Kallinikos. And Kallinikos told the emperor he knew how to burn ships. On the water. From a distance. With a fire that could not be put out. Constantine gave him everything he asked for. Bronze workers. Chemists. A workshop by the harbor. And Kallinikos built the weapon that would break the siege. Greek fire was not a bomb. It was not a catapult projectile. It was a liquid. A burning liquid, sprayed under pressure from a bronze tube mounted on the prow of a warship. The delivery system was called a siphon. A bronze pipe, reinforced, often shaped like a lion's head or a dragon. Behind it was a pump mechanism and a pressurized chamber. The liquid itself was stored in sealed containers below decks, mixed fresh before battle. The crew pumped the liquid through the siphon under pressure. At the mouth of the tube was a flame, an oil lamp, a wick, something burning. The liquid hit the flame and ignited midair, spraying out in a roaring jet that could reach 40 feet or more. The Arab sources are unanimous on what happened next. The liquid stuck. It clung to wood, to cloth, to skin. Water made it worse. Pouring seawater on Greek fire just spread the flames. The only thing that slowed it was sand, or vinegar, or urine. Smothering it. Anything that cut off the air. But in the chaos of a sea battle, with your ship burning under you, there was no time for sand. You jumped, and the fire followed you into the water. The Byzantines also had a portable version. The chirosiphon, a hand siphon. Clay grenades filled with the mixture, sealed with wax, fitted with a fuse. Byzantine marines threw them onto enemy decks or lowered them on chains against the hulls of ships trying to ram. The psychological effect was total. Arab historians describe sailors who refused to fight the Byzantine fleet, crews who abandoned ships at the first sight of the bronze siphons, a weapon so terrifying that just seeing it broke morale. In 678, after 5 years of blockade, the Byzantine fleet sailed out with Greek fire and destroyed the Arab navy in a single engagement. The Arab chronicler Theophanes writes that the fleet lost thousands of men and limped back to Syria in ruins. The siege was over. 40 years later, in 717, the Caliphate tried again. A new caliph, Sulayman, sent an even larger force. 1,800 ships, 80,000 men. They besieged Constantinople by land and sea for an entire year. Winter came. The Arab army froze in their camps. Ships sank in storms. Food ran out. And every time the fleet tried to close on the city, the Byzantine dromons came out with their siphons lit. In 718, the siege collapsed. The Arabs abandoned the blockade and sailed for home. Greek fire had saved the empire twice. And for the next 300 years, it kept saving it, against the Rus, against the Bulgarians, against every fleet that tried to challenge Byzantine control of the sea. It was the superweapon of the medieval world, and the Byzantines knew it, so they made absolutely certain no one else could ever have it. Greek fire was a state secret on a level we have trouble imagining. Not classified, not restricted, sacred. The formula was locked inside the imperial family and the descendants of Kallinikos. No one else was allowed to know it. Not generals, not shipwrights, not even the sailors who operated the siphons. The production was compartmentalized. One workshop mixed the base ingredients. Another prepared the containers. A third installed the siphons. No single artisan ever saw the entire process. The final mixture was delivered to the ships in sealed bronze tanks, ready to use, with no labels, no instructions, nothing written down. And it was never written down. That is the part that historians still find staggering. The Byzantines wrote everything. They had libraries, archives, detailed technical manuals for architecture, medicine, military tactics. But not this. The recipe for Greek fire was passed orally, from emperor to heir, inside the imperial family and nowhere else. We know this because in the year 950, Emperor Constantine VII wrote a manual for his son on how to rule the empire. It is called De Administrando Imperio, and in it, Constantine warns his son that there are 3 secrets he must never, under any circumstances, reveal to a foreign power. 1. Never let a foreign princess marry into the imperial family. 2. Never give anyone the imperial crown. 3. Never, ever give anyone the formula for Greek fire. Constantine writes that Greek fire was revealed to the Byzantines by an angel, that it is holy, that any emperor who shares the secret will be struck by divine fire and condemned forever. Whether he believed that or not does not matter. The point is clear. This knowledge stays here. It dies with us if it has to. And the system worked. For 300 years, no enemy ever captured a working sample they could analyze. No Byzantine defector ever sold the formula. Even when the empire was collapsing, even when it might have been worth a fortune, the secret held. Until it did not. The last confirmed use of Greek fire in battle was in the year 1189. Byzantine dromons used it to scatter a Norman fleet off the coast of Greece. After that, the sources go silent. We do not know exactly when the formula was lost. There is no record of the moment it vanished. No document saying the last chemist died, the last workshop closed. It just stopped appearing in the sources. Ships still carried siphons for a while, bronze tubes on the prows, as much for show as for use. But they were not firing anything. By 1204, when the Fourth Crusade sacked Constantinople and burned half the city, there is no mention of Greek fire in the defense. If the Byzantines still had it, they would have used it. The Crusaders were attacking by sea. It was the perfect scenario. But the dromons that came out to meet them had nothing. Just ramming prows and arrows, like any other medieval navy. So what happened? The best theory is that the secrecy killed it. When you restrict knowledge to a single family, to a handful of people who cannot write it down, you create a fragile chain. One plague, one political purge, one generation that dies before passing it on, and the link breaks. Sometime in the 12th century, probably during the chaos of the Crusades and the endless civil wars, the last person who knew the full formula died. And he took it with him. For 800 years, no one knew what Greek fire was made of. Then, in the late 20th century, historians and chemists started trying to reverse engineer it. The most detailed work was done by a historian named John Haldon at Princeton, working with a retired chemist from the petroleum industry. Haldon and his team built a working siphon based on Byzantine descriptions: bronze tube, pump mechanism, pressurized chamber. They tested dozens of different fuel mixtures, trying to match what the sources describe. A liquid that burns on water. That sticks. That cannot be put out. What they found is that the base was almost certainly petroleum, crude oil, or a refined version called naphtha, likely sourced from natural seeps around the Black Sea. The Byzantines had access to surface petroleum deposits in the Crimea and the Caucasus, places where crude oil literally bubbles out of the ground. But petroleum alone does not stick. It burns, but it is thin. It does not cling to wood. So the Byzantines must have added thickening agents. The leading candidates are pine resin, sulfur, and quicklime, calcium oxide, which reacts violently with water and generates heat. The siphon itself was probably heated before firing. Warm the liquid, pressurize it, and force it through a narrow nozzle past an open flame. The heat makes it spray farther. The thickening agents make it stick. The quicklime makes it flare when it hits seawater. Haldon's team got close. Their mixture burned on water. It stuck to wood. It was hard to extinguish, but they do not know if they got it exactly right, because the Byzantines left no recipe, no measurements, no procedure, just descriptions of what it looked like when it worked. So we have a working theory, but we do not have the weapon. Not really. We have an approximation, an educated guess. After 1,000 years, Greek fire is still partly a mystery. And that is what secrecy costs. The Byzantines protected Greek fire so well that they erased it. Not from history, we know it existed, but from reality. The knowledge of how to make it, how to use it, the details that would let someone rebuild it, are gone. And they are gone because someone, 800 years ago, decided it was safer to let it die than to risk writing it down. Greek fire is not the only technology we have lost this way. History is full of them. Roman concrete that could set underwater and lasted 2,000 years. We only figured out the recipe in the 21st century by analyzing fragments under an electron microscope. Damascus steel, folded and forged into blades that could cut through European swords, lost when the last smiths died without apprentices. The Library of Alexandria. The Antikythera mechanism. Entire fields of knowledge that existed, worked, saved lives, or won wars, and then vanished because no one wrote them down or everyone who knew them died at once. But Greek fire is different. It was not lost by accident. It was not burned in a war or forgotten in a collapse. It was lost on purpose. The Byzantines made a deliberate choice. Keep it secret, keep it safe, and accept that if the chain ever breaks, it is gone forever. And for 300 years, that worked. Greek fire saved the empire over and over. It kept Constantinople standing when every other city in the east had fallen. It held the line between Christian Europe and the Caliphate at a moment when the outcome was not obvious. But the cost was that when the empire finally weakened, when the workshops closed and the last chemists died, there was no backup. No written manual hidden in a library. No apprentice in another city who knew the formula. Just silence. The superweapon of the medieval world, erased by the same secrecy that protected it. We do this still. Classify things so tightly that only a handful of people understand them. Store knowledge in formats that will not last. Trust that someone will remember, that the institutions will hold, that there will always be a next generation to pass it to. Greek fire is a warning. It tells us that even the most critical knowledge, the kind that saves empires, can be lost in a single generation if we do not write it down. That secrecy has a price, and the price is permanence. Somewhere under the Bosporus, in the silt where Byzantine warships once patrolled, there are probably fragments of the old siphons. Bronze tubes, corroded, packed with the residue of the mixture they fired. We could dredge them up, analyze the deposits. Maybe, finally, learn exactly what Greek fire was made of. But even if we did, it would not give us the weapon. Because Greek fire was not just a formula. It was a system, a tradition, the knowledge of how to pump it, heat it, aim it, when to fire, and when to hold. That knowledge lived in people. In the sailors who crewed the dramens, the engineers who built the siphons, the chemists who mixed the fuel fresh before every battle. And all of those people are gone. The empire that kept the secret is gone. The weapon that burned the sea, that broke 2 sieges and held the line for 3 centuries, is gone. Greek fire saved Byzantium, and then Byzantium forgot how to make it. That is not a tragedy of war, or conquest, or time. It is the simplest kind of loss there is. They knew something, and then they did not. And now, neither do we. If you want to see the most famous unsolved mystery in the history of cryptography, that is where we are going next.